Thank you. Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, there's a couple of aspects of this that I'd like to explore, a couple of contours of this argument that I'd like to talk about. And one is, first of all, Botany Council have had their poll. The Premier has made comment on the number of people that have turned out. And if you then take that and overlay it over our planning for a poll, you might be a little bit concerned. However, you've got to consider that we live in a regional area and our media is a lot more targeted than that of Botany. The people from Botany read the Daily Telegraph, as do the people from Campbelltown, as do the people from Palm Beach and Cronulla. Out here, we have a number of excellent printed media. We also have an excellent news service that is provided by Win Television that we can exploit. We have very, very concentrated radio in terms of making people aware of the importance of voting. We have far more means of doing that than Botany Council could dream of. And it's one of the reasons that I have a successful business down here in the Illawarra is because of regional advertising and the reach and the specific targets that you can make with that. So I wouldn't take too much notice of how many people did or didn't turn out in Botany. I think that we have the means to increase that far more than what they've got. The other thing is I heard mention of the written submissions, and written submissions are terrific, and I think we are very high in that, and the submissions that I've seen and the submissions that have been put in have been very, very articulate indeed. Written submissions need to be read. No point having a written submission unless it's read. Now, I have seen some of the figures, and I'm not a mathematician, but I've seen some of the figures that they have based this whole debacle on, and to me it just doesn't add up. I don't trust that they are going to read the submissions with the veracity with which they were written. A written submission needs to be read. I just don't believe they'll do it. A poll, they cannot ignore. My feeling is that I believe that the Premier has been misled along this whole path. We need to provide the Premier with permission to exclude us from this amalgamation plan. Now, I think that we've done it with our sheer numbers at public meetings. We've done it with our submissions, but will he have the information from those submissions? Will his information be slanted? We have had a delegate who's held meetings, 2-3 hour meetings to gauge the barometer of 20,000 people. I don't think that's possible, and will that be reported to him? The Boundary Commission, and I don't believe that we have got access to the Boundary Commission. I think that there's no way that we can talk to them and say, well, you'd like to run a poll? If we do a poll and it's done legitimately, and I think there can be no question, and I don't doubt Council's ability to be able to conduct a poll, but I think that if a poll was done by a third party, the Electoral Commission of New South Wales, the commission that elected the New South Wales state government, there can be no question. So we've got the means to do it. We've got the... And lastly, I know that there's a lot of concern about money. Now, it's always been the funny thing about councils. The amount of money that sort of amounts to some of your mortgage or how much money you can carry in your back pocket is really, really important. A couple of months ago, we gave $600,000 for street sweeping equipment. I reckon that we can afford $150,000 to keep the streets rather than just keep them clean. In the grand scheme of things, it's on a personal level it's a lot of money, but to the council, how much is our survival worth? How much is it worth? If we have had a case of OCD with this whole thing, and I don't mean obsessive compulsive disorder, I mean an overly cautious disposition, and it's turned on us and it's bitten us. Let's do those things that are necessary to give the Premier permission to allow us to stand alone. Thank you.
And if you want Kiama to go to Gowings, vote against this motion, but let it rest on your conscience for the rest of your life if we lose out, because I believe the only way, I think the mind's already made up. I think the minds were made up on day one. But the only way we'll change it is to frighten the pants off this government. And we will show them in the light that they really are. If they ignore this democracy, this democratic process that we want to go through, if they ignore that, they don't deserve the whole government. And I don't think they'll be re-elected. And I certainly don't think our local member in Kiama will be elected.
We'll close the debate, Mr General Manager. If the motion carries, we'll get a motion to do that at the second one.
Yeah.
All right, we've got a motion. You have it on the board. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Those against? Sorry, start again. All those in favour? Those against? I declare it carried.